Hello, everybody, and pardon the delay. We are having some wonderful technological issues, so please bear with us and thank you so much for being here. For those who don't know me, my name is Helen Toomer, and I am the Executive Director of AIRIE. Very fortunate to be so. Wanted to thank all of our wonderful sponsors and partners, most notably the Everglades National Park, which we're all dying to be at right now. And also want to say thank you to our fabulous board, our magical fellows, and for you all for joining us. Dorian right now is trying to get into the call. So what we're going to do is Tommy, who's our magical technological guru that you can't see at the moment, is going to play a short 1-minute video of Dorian's to keep us occupied while Dorian tries to get on. And then from there, I'm going to ask him about his experience as an artist in residence this past March at AIRIE, and also what he's working on now. And we're really excited because we're going to be welcoming him back to complete his residency in March of next year. So Tommy, my love. Oh, Dorian, you're here.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello. Yay, technology works.
Not always, but most of the time.
Okay, good. So happy you're here. So everybody doesn't have to listen to me carry on talking. I was just explaining to our lovely guests that that you were a resident in March, and obviously your residency got cut short, and that we're so excited to welcome you back next March. So Dorian, you're there, right? Just checking.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, perfect. So Dorian, Tommy, I don't know if you want to start the presentation, and then Dorian, I am going to ask you some questions. What I'm going to say to all the magical people who are joining us right now, if you have any questions for Dorian at all, please feel free to write them in the chat. And then we're going to go through his work. He's going to tell us lots of incredible things, and then we can ask questions at the end. So Dorian, my friend, over to you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Sure. Again, my name is Dorian Emerson. I was born in New York City. Grew up in Miami, the Kendall neighborhood to be exact. And growing up, I always had an affinity to the arts. I was really into movies and video games like most young kids. I remember my mom taking me to this independent video game and movie store, and every Friday if we had like a good week of school. And that's back when like it wasn't Blockbuster, but that's back when like Blockbuster was a thing. And we'd rent a video game and 2 movies like every Friday. And I didn't know it at the time, but slowly but surely I developed a passion for film. But I was a pretty good athlete. I excelled in high school and was granted an athletic scholarship to play football at the University of Florida. And for the most part, football was my focus. I had aspirations to play professionally. I got close. I played a little bit, but I just wasn't talented enough post-injury to play long-term. And I really had to shift my focus. And, I had a master's degree in management, and I was working for like a sports company in New York. But a film opportunity presented itself, and I decided to get involved. And I've been doing film ever since. I started off kind of small scale, working with University of Miami Film School students, helping them on their projects just to learn, most of the times for free. And a few years later, I started to do my own thing. And my first, unofficial film was called American Town. And I shot it in Panama City Beach, Florida in 2018. And that, the next year in January, I decided to look into the Martin Luther King celebration in Miami, because it's something that I've always heard about but never really experienced for myself. And things just started kind of going from there.
Wow, that's great. I'm always so interested the relationship between sports and arts, because kind of like when you're at school, it kind of feels like you're kind of like a sports kid or an arty kid. But like we were talking about like the parallels for you in terms of like football and filmmaking, and kind of like the skills that you learned playing football, how they have translated to being a filmmaker. Do you feel that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually thinking about that last night, how football and documentary filmmaking are similar. Um, when we watch football on TV, there's something called like football plays, and it's a play designed to work. But over 50% of the time, the play does not go as planned. And you have to adjust, you have to improvise on the fly. And the average football play is 4 to 6 seconds long. So when I say you're improvising on the fly, you're really improvising in like less than a second. You have to make decisions. And the same as on set. I mean, we were on set Monday. About halfway through, we had sound issues, so we had to readjust our schedule. You have to make decisions based off lighting and natural light from the sun, and these are all split decisions. And I have a crew of roughly 10 to 12 people, depending on the choices that I make. So it's a little bit of pressure, but football definitely prepared me for guerrilla documentary filmmaking.
Do you feel like you're like, and forgive me because uh, I'm not very well educated about American football, but so then it's kind of like parallel. Do you see yourself more as like the manager or like the center? Who's the like the center forward? Like how would you?
Um, I guess you could say directing is similar to quarterback, and I'm not sure familiar with soccer positions, but kind of the quarterback or the coach. I mean, you're just kind of calling the plays and giving out the instructions and relying on people that you trust to deliver what you ask them for.
So filmmaking documentary is a team sport.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're pretty much nothing without your team. I kind of pride myself on focusing on the story aspect. I didn't really go to film school, so I'm not super well versed in operating a camera or editing equipment or lighting for that matter. But one thing I did do is pretty much read every screenwriting book that they say you should read for filmmaking. I really studied the art of story, whether it's YouTube University or just going to as many seminars or workshops that I can. So while I may lack some skills in the other departments, I feel like I'm very confident in my abilities in the world of story. And luckily, I've been able to work alongside a good friend of mine, Ben Clairvaux, who also helped work on Moonlight. My DP, Isaac, has been great. He's given us some really great visuals so far. And Jonathan Bowens has helped us with the lighting, and we're just a really good team. We're also a very diverse team. We had an on-set photographer, Jade and Martina, and we create magic together. I'm really happy to be working alongside them.
Oh, I like the fact you say create magic. That's something that I like to say a lot. Enough in the work that I associate with the Everglades. And like this picture is of you in the Everglades during your residency. So I wondered if you could tell us like a little bit about what it was like to be there, and kind of what kind of what you were thinking and making, and kind of how that will translate to next March.
Well, first off, I have to really thank Deborah Mitchell and Sarah for the opportunity to be a part of this prestigious fellowship. I'm very grateful for the opportunity that they afforded me to be involved. And Deborah's a rock star. She wears many hats, and I mean, she came to check me in. She had food there for me. She set me up on a bunch of tours. And, I'm like I told her, I think what's unique about my experience in the Everglades, although it was cut short, is like I'm a city kid. I grew up in New York. I was born in New York City. And, I lived in Miami, and I think it's unfortunate that we have this amazing space, the Everglades, with such unique history, located, 15, 20 minutes west, but our only education of what occurred there is whatever they happen to teach us in high school, which isn't much and is often skewed. And I mean, like Pocahontas, and I decided that I wanted to get involved with this residency because I felt it was a disservice that I live so close and I'm unaware of what's happening over there. Alongside Houston Cypress, I have a few plans for what I would like to do during my residency. Unfortunately, it was cut short due to COVID, and I'm grateful for the making up of the time. But in my short stay there, I was able to go on a hike with Houston Cypress, who is from the Miccosukee tribe, and really explored Big Cypress and a lot of the different locations and landmarks out there. I also was given a tour of the missile silo that's located out there that had big implications on the Bay of Pigs. And I spent some time on the reservation and getting to know the local people and the authentic history, not one that's passed down through outdated history books. And what I'm looking to do there, in light of what's happened this year, is in March 2020, in March 2021, I pretty much want to do a documentary reflecting on what occurred in the year 2020. So 2020 is going to be a unique year. And the thing is, it's only halfway through, but we're dealing with, quote unquote, a revolution. We have an upcoming election that's going to be controversial. We dealt with a pandemic, and it's going to be nice for myself or any artist to be able to be secluded and reflect on those times while also exploring the Everglades. I'd also like to include the history at the same time of the Miccosukee tribe and explore the local ecosystem and the hardships that the ecosystem face. So it's going to be a unique doc in a sense that it's going to be strictly verite, and the only way I'm going to get my thoughts across are subtitled on screen, and it's going to be in the fashion as if I was typing them on a computer. So it'd be like I'm typing them on a computer in real time to get across any type of information I'd like to convey.
Wow, that's a lot to do. That's like I'm very, very excited, because that was going to be one of my questions I was going to ask you about this year. Obviously, so much has happened. There's been so much unrest and injustice, and I wondered how that had changed the way that you were thinking about your practice, or way that you were like making. I mean, you've talked about what you'd like to do in 2021, but kind of what are you doing now, and has it changed from before the kind of the revolution and before COVID?
Yeah, I was in the latter stages of a short documentary entitled "These Kids, This City," and it was gratefully funded by Oolite Arts, an amazing nonprofit organization here in South Florida.
Love Oolites.
Yeah, they're great. They're very well ran and very professional. And yeah, we were in the latter stages of the production. We pretty much finished the shooting, the filming of it, MLK Day 2020, so in January. And all we were waiting for is the court case, because there's a hate crime incident that the story kind of revolves around. But for one reason or another, they kept pushing back that court date. And, every time we'd show up to the hearings, and they just push it back and push it back. And the film, the film heavily involves the results of that case. So it's caused me to prolong the process of that film. In addition, I feel like we all know the world's changed a lot since January. And, it started off with Ahmaud Arbery in Brunswick, Georgia, and then George Floyd's incident in Minnesota. And before you knew it, there were I mean, from what I saw, I think there was, protests in 18 different countries. And I kind of realized that, the world's shifting, awareness is shifting. And the film that I'm working on kind of embodies that culture.
Yeah.
So I was kind of split. I was like, wow, I really want to talk about what's going on right now, but I'm also doing a film that involves a whole subculture in Miami, and I'm not sure if I can combine the two. And I was wrestling with the decision for a while, and I decided to do two separate projects. So the current film that I'm working on is called Negros, and Negros is the Spanish term for blacks. And essentially, it's an experimental portrait film depicting the young Black male experience in Miami during these, uncertain and turbulent times. And being Black anywhere is an experience. Being any race anywhere is an experience. But I decided to look at the uniqueness of being Black in Miami for a young male. And, I think it's worth exploring because Miami's a special place. It's a melting pot. It's a minority majority. So a few of the differences that I'm looking to highlight as what makes this experience unique is language, where it's almost vital to know a second language here in order to really, kind of survive. Also, this is a place that's on the forefront of climate change and sea level rise and climate driven displacement. And that's something that I was interested in showcasing. And yeah, I'm really excited about it. It's gone really well. And it's actually something that's going to be completed very soon. And we're sending it off to film festivals.
Yeah, that's so exciting. We've just Tommy is kind of going through the PowerPoint presentation of images that you've sent us, and so we've got the first image here of a young Black boy riding his bike. Can you tell us a little bit? Is this a still from the film?
Yeah, this is a still from the film. The gentleman on the bike, his name is James. He's our lead protagonist. He's a 14-year-old male from Liberty City. And what's interesting for me about this photo is not only the amazing ability to be able to pop a wheelie like that. I mean, I can't even do it, so I commend him on that. But he's right now in the Miami Design District, where you have stores like Prada, Gucci, Tom Ford, you name it, it's there on that street. But he lives, this was probably a 3-minute bike ride from his house to get there. Maybe two, it was like 2.5 minutes. And where he lives, the median income is $18,000 a year. So there's a lot of blending of neighborhoods and changing of neighborhoods in South Florida. And I felt like the juxtaposition of, this young kid from a certain environment popping wheelies in Design District of Miami would be very captivating. And I'm excited to portray that in the film.
Yeah, that's Tommy, I wonder if you could go through the images, and Dorian, and maybe you can speak a little bit more about them, about the journey of these images.
Yeah, thanks, Tommy. I'll talk a little bit about this one. This is in the same location, just showcasing his talent in the way in which he rides his bike. This is him back in his neighborhood. I feel like right now things have kind of got to be a fantasy for young people. I mean, we had New Year's and everything was going pretty good, and all of a sudden we're all walking around in masks, standing 6 feet away from each other. And, we take it in and we experience this all a certain way, but I can imagine how a 13, 14-year-old kid from that environment is experiencing it. And I feel like it's got to feel a little bit fantasy-like, a little bit magical. So with this short documentary, I'm looking to add a level of magical realism to it. So this is James on the 4th of July, playing with sparklers and fireworks, and his community was celebrating the holiday, Independence Day, in their own way, and we captured that.
Yeah, Dorian, we spoke a little bit about magical realism and the parallels that you drew between that and the Black experience. Can you share a little bit more about that for our viewers?
Yeah, I touched on it a little bit, but I just feel like sometimes considering what people from the Black race have gone through historically, not like in my lifetime, but in past lifetimes, and it's almost got to feel like sometimes it's not even real life. I mean, I think just a couple weeks ago there was a bunch of breaking news clips about like bodies hanging from trees and stuff, and like sometimes it almost feels like this isn't even real. So I wanted to kind of portray that in this film. And just being a young kid, it's a fantasy-like time in our lives. It's magical. I know we all can reminisce on when we used to ride bikes in groups with people in our neighborhood and spend the days walking through our neighborhoods, kind of doing things that we shouldn't. And I felt like magical realism is a good way to embody that in a cinematic piece.
Yeah, and I love that kind of like going back and thinking about childhood and what you said, things that you really shouldn't be doing that were fun back then. And also you talked about before, like bikes kind of being internationally recognized as recreation, as childhood, and that's been something that's been a theme through your work. So can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, this film, my goal is of course to showcase the uniqueness of a perspective in Miami, but I'd also like it to have some global appeal. As I mentioned earlier, there are Black Lives Matter protests in 18 countries in the last couple of months. And I feel like it's not just a domestic United States revolution, it's a global revolution. But one thing that I can say for sure is bike riding is global. I mean, I don't think there's a country that you can go to where people or kids aren't riding bikes or don't have knowledge of what a bike is. And as James explains in the film, his bike is something that allows him to escape. Things may not be going too well where he's living, but he can get on a bike and in 3 minutes be in a whole different world. And Miami provides that ability. A lot of these different neighborhoods, border neighborhoods that are drastically different. And the bike allows these young people to expand their minds and expand what's possible out there. And he treasures his bike.
Well, that's really joyful. It's really hopeful in terms of being able to get on your bike and ride and be somewhat carefree. And I wanted to ask you more about the people that you're filming and kind of the relationships that you're building, because it's got to be such an intimate relationship, because they have to trust you in order to be filmed, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. I feel like the relationship with the people that you're working with are vital to being able to portray their stories accurately. And I can honestly say I've probably spent as much time with James not filming as I have filming. He's almost become somewhat of like a little brother of mine, where during the pandemic I would visit him and his family, and I drop off waters and Gatorades, and I probably shouldn't be saying this, but he really likes gummy bears, so I drop off some gummy bears. And he's really, what I find fascinating about James, amongst many other things, is that a lot of times when we're young, we aspire to be football players or basketball players or work in entertainment. And I guess I'm guilty because I played football and I kind of work in entertainment now, but he has aspirations of working in waste management. And I almost had to ask him that twice, like, what career? You're like, no, waste management. This is a 14-year-old kid that knows what he wants to do. And I credit that to a couple things. One thing is, for some reason, a lot of people dump and litter in his neighborhood. And even though these kids, every night, they go outside and they play, and it's like 30 to 40 kids just running around in the neighborhood, oftentimes there's trash everywhere. And I think that's contributes partly to why he wants to pursue that career. Also, in the middle of his neighborhood, where in any other neighborhood, you'd have a clear parking lot where kids can run around and play, there's 2 enormous waste management bins. And I think just leaving his front door every day or hanging out on his porch and seeing those waste management bins in the middle of his neighborhood have kind of motivated him to pursue that career. And it's a very noble career. And, like I recently got him a children's book to read called Trash. And it's a story about some kids who find some type of, large amount of money in a trash can and stuff. So like in regards to your question, I've definitely built a good rapport with James and his family, and they've allowed me this opportunity to tell his unique story.
It's always, I know it's such a cliche, but it's always interesting to learn and to really understand how environments really affect you. And kind of like what you were talking about in terms of being so close to the Everglades, but maybe not necessarily knowing so much about it. And about, for James, this kind of it's incredibly noble in terms of wanting to help his community in terms of waste management. And I think community is something that is a thread through your work too. And also, I mean, we've talked before about like the seeking of truth and kind of this non-traditional kind of documentary style. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you is like, why is kind of filming and portraying the truth or the truths of your subject so important to you? I know that's a big question. Sorry, Dorian.
Yeah, that's a really good question, but it's just something that appeals to me. But also, I'd like to be able to help make change, and I feel narrative is a way to get that done, but documentary is a way to get it done as well. And for some people in South Florida, in that community, I feel like it's crisis mode. I mean, times are hard, unemployment is high, sea levels rising. I mean, we see the flooding that's happening in Miami. We barely hit hurricane season. And, I think if some changes aren't made soon, we're going to see a large population of people really start to dwindle. And my goal is not only to tell this unique story, but help bring awareness to a certain situation that I feel needs addressing, because there's some people struggling right now, and we don't really see it if we're not aware. I mean, sometimes we talk about Overtown and how the highways are built on top of Overtown, to where if you don't really want to see Overtown, you really don't have to. You can go straight from the western part of Miami straight to downtown Brooklyn, the beach. So hopefully with this film and other films that are out there, we can kind of bring some awareness to a population of Miami that's kind of being unrecognized.
I think that's the power of artists. That's the power of you as an artist in terms of storytelling and sharing. This is the way that we and so many other people are learning, and I think that it's incredible. So I want to say thank you for sharing and doing, because it's incredible. I want to shift gears a little bit, because I want to ask you about your immersive theatre experience. A little bit, because I'm always fascinated to hear you talk about that.
Absolutely. I'm sorry we're unable to share some video.
Oh, Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Dorian. I was going to say, so for everybody on the who's listening, we're going to send you some links so you can see some of this immersive theatre.
Yeah.
Now we just get to listen to Dorian describe it.
Yeah, in 2018, for about 7 or 8 months, I was living in Los Angeles, and I was a part of this theater troupe called Sloss and Rec. And we used to meet in a community center, and the theater troupe was run by actor Shia LaBeouf. What's fascinating about this theater troupe is that it wasn't really traditional theater. I mean, I would tell people it was essentially Shakespeare on heroin, but it's immersive theater. It's very improvisational, where we'll be given certain prompts and we'll be in a room with about 300 people in a circle, and 1 or 2 people will get into the middle of the circle and for 2 to 3 minutes embody whatever it is that the prompt was in their own way. And through that, we began to build and turned it into a cohesive play. And I started off as just a regular, random attendee. I became aware of it through a friend of mine named Dakota Powers, who was the lead protagonist in the film that I did in Panama City Beach called American Town. He actually acted with Shia LaBeouf in a film called American Honey, and he put me in touch with Shia. And slowly but surely, after attending regularly, I was moved up to the creative team, and I was in charge of helping write the story that we would portray. And it was amazing because it was essentially like a melting pot for artists and creatives in Los Angeles. And there's people there from all over the US. And at times it kind of felt, cult-like. We'd be there every Saturday from about 10 a.m. to maybe 3:30, 4 in the afternoon. And we'd take like maybe a 20-minute break. And I learned a lot, not only from being around all those creative people, but just working alongside Shia. And some of the things I learned, it kind of helped me with my filmmaking in terms of how to be simplistic in expressing certain things. And the immersive theater aspect is something that I was interested in doing with the young people of the Miccosukee tribe. It might be an issue now due to social distancing, but I think there may be ways around it, and possibly something that could be put on video. I'm a huge fan of the Miami Motel Stories series put on by Juggernaut, and I really like the work that they do. And I'm interested in doing something similar, but with, the young people of the Everglades, and maybe a little bit less dialogue and more choreography.
Wow. I love the fact that it's like it's film, it's people, it's community, it's dance, it's it's the whole narrative, it's the whole world, the whole feelings that you're kind of collecting and then kind of sharing these truths and storytelling.
Yeah.
And talking of storytelling and talking of kind of being, social distance and being locked up in terms of, being quarantined for the past few months, I asked you kind of what you were watching and kind of what films had influenced you, or what films you had seen recently that so could you tell us a couple of movies that you've been watching that?
Yeah, I wrote a few of them down based off our preliminary talks, but I'm a really big fan of Ramel Ross's Hale County, this evening. In 2019, it was a finalist for Best Feature-Length Documentary. And it really just shows a subculture of life in Alabama, Hale County in particular. And I've got on to get to know Ramel Ross, and I'm a huge fan of his work. Also, there's a film called Daughters of the Dust. It was a film made by Julie Dash that came out in the late 80s or early 90s. And it's one of the first films that I think from a Black cinematic perspective embodied some levels of magical realism. And yeah, those are two films that really inspired me and motivated me.
Yeah, and we're gonna send because I jotted them down too. So we're gonna send everybody some of the recommended movies. And you were also saying, you know, at this time, due to the revolution and the focus on Black Lives Matter, there is a lot of films with that are by Black directors focused on Black Lives Matter that are out at the moment, which is great because it's a great resource for all of us to watch. Like you were saying, in terms of the Criterion channel has a lot there also.
Yeah, these are definitely unprecedented times. I mean, I never thought I'd ever see a Black films tab on like Amazon and Netflix. But you know, as a creative, that was a good thing because I spent countless amount of hours just consuming every quote unquote Black film that I can get my eyes on. And it kind of really expanded my mind, not only to what's already been created, but how I can kind of evolve on what's been created in the past and kind of put together something that's a little bit more current and embodies what's going on today. And I'm just fascinated, not just from a Black film perspective, but just from a film perspective in general. I feel like coming out of this, you know, pandemic situation that we're in, there's going to be a lot of amazing projects that are going to come from creatives and artists that have kind of been penned up indoors in their little labs or creative corners. And, you know, there's definitely going to be content that people are going to want to consume after consuming so much during the last few months. So this is somewhat of an exciting time for creatives.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. I just wanted to say we have a quick question, which is from Zara, who says, I am wondering how you were able to find your tribe of creatives outside of networking through traditional outlets like MFA programs, etc. As I can often feel intimidated to enter this industry because of the lack of formal education in filmmaking.
Hey, Zara, great question. I feel like the way I was able to attract the tribe was through working on other projects. Ben, who's like my confidant, who I've worked with on pretty much everything, we met while working on MTV's Jersey Shore together, believe it or not. And same.
Dorian.
Say that again?
I said I wasn't expecting you to say the Jersey Shore.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to work on it, but you know, at the time, make a couple bucks, and it was a good experience. It's a really well-ran reality show. So that's where I was able to meet two of my crew members, my grip and my producer, Ben. And then just kind of what I would tell her is the Miami community is fairly small. And when a project's made, if you see something in the project that you like, whether it's the cinematography or the sound or whatever, you could always look at the credits and see who that person was and look them up. And there's ample amount of ways to contact someone, whether it's social media or through somebody that you know. So working on sets, meeting people, and just seeing work from someone that you like and reaching out to them. Those are my 2 words of advice on that matter.
That's good. That's good words of advice. Like working on the job and networking is always great. I think Tommy is now going to bring up one of your short films for us to watch, which I think is about a minute and a half. So I'm thinking maybe we can watch this and then you can tell us about it.
Okay.
Dream of love and light and lighter. Love is in many hearts. Heart of love and dreaming for love Wow. Dorian, tell us about that.
That was just a small montage from the film Negros. And really what it was is just a segment where we wanted to exemplify the magical feel of MLK Day and the parade in Miami and the way it's celebrated. This is an annual event that happens every year. And for some of these young kids, it's essentially their Super Bowl. It's the day that they get to come out with their bikes and showcase the new tricks that they've learned over the course of the year. And they get to meet up with their friends from different neighborhoods and kind of ride in unison. And it's a huge event for them. It's a spectacle. It's something that they look forward to the entire year. And not just the kids, but there's people that make costumes for the parade. There's people that decide to go out there and barbecue and grill and kind of hang out in fellowship. And it was shot in that fashion through a good friend of mine, Napti, because it's kind of fantasy-like, it's kind of magical, and we felt the best way to depict it would be within a musical montage, showcasing the way it's celebrated.
I love the music and the flow and the journey of that. It was beautiful. We have another question from Houston, Cyprus, who says, how are you thinking about experimenting or innovating in how you are telling stories, whether audio, visually, or even from your own heart?
Hey, Houston. Houston's a rock star. I just want to let everybody know. With the pieces that I mentioned earlier, Negros and These Kids, the City, it's you know, These Kids, the City, it's about the bike life culture in Miami, which I'm not native to, and Negros is telling a story of an experience in Miami through a particular character, James, and I'm not James. But in regards to the self-reflection piece that I'm doing during my residency in March next year, I think what'll be unique about it is that it'll be personal. It'll be a self-reflection where I will kind of share things about myself that I probably haven't shared before cinematically, and mentally, who knows where I'll be come March next year. And I think what'll be unique about it is in isolating myself in nature and in solitude, I feel like it'll be a very personal piece. Also, as I mentioned before, I kind of want it to be unique in a sense that I don't really want a lot of dialogue, and I don't really want to, I just want it to be verite. I wanted to immerse my audience in the landscape of the Everglades. And I think it's unique getting my thoughts across while they're being typed on screen in real time, as if I'm typing them on a laptop or computer. So yeah, those are the few ways I feel like I'd like to change up the typical traditional filmmaking methods.
I mean, I am excited for that, Dorian. And also, we've got another question for you from Dine. Do you think that your experiences with these kids and the impact of transportation on that community influences your current work on Negroes, and how transportation and mobility, both free and restricted, is an integral part of the Black experience within Miami? Well, it's a good question.
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, I struggled with this. I almost felt like I was trying to figure out a way to just have it be one film. And because there's a lot of parallels. But I decided that with what's currently happening in our society, it's actually two different pieces. But being around these young kids and their experiences, and just like immersing myself to the way they talk, the way they act, what their fears are, what their concerns are, what motivates them. It's been fascinating. Not only do I reflect on my own childhood, but I just see, the obstacles and challenges that they face. And it helps me when making decisions in terms of what I should portray on screen. And yeah, both films, they essentially complement each other. I probably couldn't do one without the other. I wouldn't be able to be doing Negros right now if it wasn't for my experience with these kids this city.
Yeah, thank you. We have another question. You kind of answered it a little bit, but I'm gonna ask anyway. It's from Itzel. You've dabbled in a number of different fields. Have you ever, or have you considered inserting yourself into your work, like exploring performance art and being the subject in front of the camera, which is kind of what you alluded to for your residency next March? But I wondered if there's any more you wanted to add to that.
Hey, Itzel. She's amazing as well, a very talented artist here in South Florida. Yeah, absolutely. I feel I'll be able to do some of that with my residency in March next year, but also I would be open to doing a project that if someone wanted to explore that with me. Not only do I direct, I've kind of dabbled on the other side of the camera and helped out on a couple shoots and acting or just being in the background. So I'm very much open. Also, unfortunately, things got cut short, but I was looking to do a little bit of a photography series out in the Everglades with amazing photographer Amanda Bradley, who's recently showed some work at the Sunny Project that's becoming really popular here in South Florida. That's kind of raising money for a very good cause. And so Amanda Bradley and Martina, two friends of mine that were gonna spend some time with me out there and kind of put together a photography series of just, myself, someone who's pretty much been in the city all his life, kind of immersing himself in nature. Unfortunately, that got cut short due to COVID. But we're looking to pick it back up next year.
Yeah. Yes, I would love to see that project continue. That sounds great. So Dorian, I just want to say, thank you so much. I feel like I could literally talk to you all day. And because you're such a good storyteller, and I appreciate everything that you're bringing to light and sharing with the world. And I'm just so happy that you're part of the AIRIE family. So thank you for spending the time with us. And I think what we're going to do now, unless anybody has any other questions, I think we're going to play the short video. And Dorian, can you just tell us a little bit about it before we play and sign out?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. I think I see what video it is, but
yes,
this is essentially just a short clip of James actually riding the bike with, you know, a little bit of audio, and it's a video, not just a still, just so you can get an idea of the Black joy that he receives riding his bike in this manner in community with his friends.
That's great. So we're gonna play this, and again, Dorian, thank you so much.
Yep.
Yeah, I got you. Let's go all the way to the end of the street. Hold on. Let's go to the end of the street.
Shit.
Thank you, Dorian. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Stay safe.
You too. Bye.